Kate Brennan's hands wouldn't stop shaking as Elias Thornton looked at her like she was a horse he'd decided not to buy. "I don't need a wife anymore," he said, and with those 6 words, everything she'd sacrificed, her father's blacksmith shop, her last shred of dignity, 3 weeks of brutal winter travel from Philadelphia to Montana Territory, crumbled to nothing. She'd survived her brother's fists. She'd survived poverty. But standing in that hardware store in December 1882, watching her last hope walk away, Kate Brennan realized she might not survive being unwanted one more time. If you've ever felt rejected when you needed someone most, stay with me. Subscribe and follow Kate's journey to the very end, and comment what city you're watching from, so I can see how far this story travels. The stagecoach wheels cut through fresh snow as Kate Brennan pressed her forehead against the frost-covered window, watching Montana Territory emerge from the December gray. 3 weeks of travel. 21 days of telling herself this was the right choice. That marrying a stranger was better than staying in Philadelphia with a brother who used her face for target practice. "Lonesome Creek, miss," the driver called back. "End of the line." Kate gripped her carpet bag tighter. Inside was everything she owned. 3 dresses, her father's old Bible. The last letter from Elias Thornton creased from being read too many times. "Respectable businessman seeks practical woman for matrimony. Must be hard-working and obedient." That word obedient still stuck in her throat like a bone. The town emerged from the snow smaller than she'd imagined. False-fronted buildings lined a wide street. Men in heavy coats moved between the general store and the saloon. A church steeple rose against gray clouds, heavy with more snow. "Thornton's Hardware," the driver said, pulling up to a 2-story building with peeling paint. "Good luck, miss." Kate stepped down before he could offer help. She'd stopped accepting help from men years ago. They always wanted something in return. The hardware store door opened. A thin man with graying hair and cold eyes stepped out, his gaze moving over her like she was merchandise. "Miss Brennan?" Not a question. Not warm. "Mr. Thornton." Kate kept her voice steady, despite the way his expression made her skin crawl. "Your letters. We need to talk." He turned back into the store without waiting for her response. Kate followed her boots, tracking snow across wooden floors that smelled of gun oil and leather. She'd been in her father's blacksmith shop enough to recognize the scent of metal and work, but this place felt different. Cold. Elias didn't offer her a chair. He stood behind his counter like it was a fortress. "The situation has changed," he said, looking at a point past her shoulder. "My sister arrived from Helena last month. She's keeping house for me now. I don't need a wife." The words took a moment to register. When they did, Kate's vision narrowed at the edges. "I sold everything." Her voice came out harder than she'd intended. "Your letters promised. I'll pay for tonight's room at the boarding house. Tomorrow's stage leaves at dawn." He spoke like he was discussing the weather. Many would call that generous. Generous? Kate's laugh was sharp. "You advertised in good faith. We corresponded for months. I kept my end of the bargain." "The bargain's changed." His mouth thinned. "You'll leave tomorrow. That's final." Heat flooded Kate's cheeks, not embarrassment rage. The same rage that had built every time her brother had told her to shut up, get him another drink, remember her place. She'd traveled 2,000 miles to escape that rage, and here it was following her like a shadow. "You coward!" The words came out before she could stop them. "You're breaking your word because it's convenient." Elias's face darkened. "Watch your tongue, woman. You're speaking to a respected businessman." The door opened behind Kate, bringing a gust of cold air and a man's deep voice. "Thornton, you got any spare horseshoes? My new colt threw one this morning." Kate turned. The man filled the doorway, over 6 feet tall. Broad shoulders, covered by a worn sheepskin coat. Black hair fell past his collar, tied back with a leather cord. When he removed his hat, she saw dark eyes that moved from Elias to her and back again, assessing. "Merrick." Elias's voice took on an oily quality. I'm in the middle of something. Doesn't look like pleasant conversation. The newcomer's gaze settled on Kate, taking in her red face and clenched fists. Everything all right, ma'am? Fine. Kate forced the word out. She wouldn't air her humiliation to another stranger. Miss Brennan was just leaving. Elias moved toward the door, like he could physically push her out. The boarding house is 2 buildings down. Brennan. The tall man's expression shifted. The mail-order bride from Philadelphia. Kate's stomach dropped. Of course, the whole town knew. In a place this small, everyone would know Elias Thornton had sent for a wife. Former mail-order bride, Elias corrected. My circumstances changed. I'm sending her back east tomorrow. The newcomer looked at Kate again, something unreadable in his dark eyes. Then he turned to Elias. You let this woman travel 2,000 miles based on your promise, and now you're sending her back because it's inconvenient. My sister needs me. Your sister's been running a boarding house in Helena for 10 years. The tall man's voice stayed level, but there was steel underneath. She doesn't need you. You just decided a wife was more trouble than she's worth. Elias's face reddened. This isn't your concern, Merrick. It became my concern when you decided to shame this woman publicly. He paused. When a man in my town acts without honor, I take notice. Your town, Elias sputtered. You're half... Careful. The word was soft but carried weight. Think hard about what you're about to say. The air in the store felt charged, dangerous. Kate watched the exchange with growing confusion. Who was this man who could make Elias Thornton swallow his words? Merrick turned to her. Miss Brennan, do you still want to stay in Montana Territory? The question caught her off guard. Yes. I came here to start over. He nodded slowly, as if making a decision. I'm Thomas Merrick. I run a horse ranch about 3 miles north of town. My housekeeper left 2 weeks ago to care for her sick mother in Seattle. I need someone to manage the household. I'm offering you that position, fair wages, separate quarters, 3 months, to decide if Montana suits you. If you want to stay after that, I'll help you find permanent work or another situation. If you want to return east, I'll pay your fare. Kate stared at him. You'd hire me without references, without knowing anything about me. You were good enough to be Thornton's wife, sight unseen. A slight smile touched his lips. Figure that's reference enough for housekeeping. Besides, I'm a fair judge of character, Miss Brennan. You've got steel in you. I respect that. Now wait just a minute. Elias started. Miss Brennan can make her own decisions. Merrick's gaze never left Kate's face. What do you say? Kate's mind raced. This was reckless. She knew nothing about this man except that he'd defended her when no one else had. But what choice did she have? Return to Philadelphia and her brother's fists. Stay at the boarding house with no money and no prospects. I should warn you, she said, lifting her chin. I'm not trained as a housekeeper. I can cook basics, but I'm better with a forge hammer than a frying pan. Merrick's smile widened. You know blacksmithing. My father was a smith in Philadelphia. I worked his forge for 5 years before he died. Something lit in Merrick's eyes, respect maybe, or interest. Well now, that changes things. I've been making do with store-bought shoes for my horses, paying Billings prices. You think you could handle shoeing horses? Kate felt her spine straighten. This she knew. This she was good at. I shoed my father's customers' horses from the time I was 16. Draft horses, riding horses, even a few mules. Then we might be making a better deal than either of us expected. Merrick extended his hand. Do we have an agreement, Miss Brennan? Kate looked at his outstretched hand, calloused, scarred, the hand of a working man, not soft like Elias's, not cruel like her brother's. She took it. We have an agreement, Mr. Merrick. His grip was firm but careful, like he was conscious of his own strength. Call me Tom. Formality doesn't suit ranch life. Kate. The name felt strange in her mouth. She'd been Miss Brennan, or Girl, or You. For so long, offering her given name felt like giving away something precious. Elias made a strangled sound. This is highly irregular. What's irregular is a man going back on his word. Tom released Kate's hand and turned back to Elias. I still need those horseshoes. 3 set sizes for a 15-hand colt. While Elias reluctantly gathered the order, Kate stood straighter. The rage that had been burning in her chest shifted into something else. Not quite hope, not yet, but maybe the possibility of hope. My wagon's outside, Tom said when Elias slammed the horseshoes on the counter. He paid without comment and gestured toward the door. After you, Miss Kate. Outside, snow had started falling again. Big, fat flakes that caught in Kate's eyelashes. The wagon was sturdy, practical, pulled by 2 matched bay horses. Tom helped her up to the bench seat, his hand at her elbow, brief and impersonal. He climbed up beside her and took the reins. You should know something before we leave town, he said, not looking at her. People here respect my work. Most of them buy my horses, depend on me for quality stock. But some of them will never accept me fully. My mother was Shoshone. Some folks have opinions about that. Kate processed this information, understanding dawning. That's what Elias was about to say, before you stopped him. Probably? Tom's jaw tightened. I won't have that language around you or anyone else, but I also won't pretend some people won't judge you for working for me. If that bothers you. My father was Irish Catholic in a Protestant neighborhood. Kate interrupted. People crossed the street to avoid us. I learned young that other people's prejudice says more about them than about us. Tom glanced at her, surprise flickering across his face. Then he clicked his tongue and the horses moved forward. They drove through town in silence, Kate aware of faces appearing in windows watching. A woman in front of the general store whispered to her companion. A man loading supplies paused to stare. They'll talk, Tom said quietly. Small towns always do. Let them. Kate kept her chin up. I've got nothing to be ashamed of. At the edge of town, they passed a small cabin with smoke rising from the chimney. A Chinese man stood in the doorway watching. When he saw Tom, he raised a hand in greeting. Tom returned the gesture. That's Sam Chen, my foreman. His wife May will likely visit tomorrow. She'll want to make sure you're settling in all right. Your foreman is Chinese. Best horseman I've ever seen, and I've seen plenty. Tom's voice held quiet pride. Sam worked the railroad gangs before I hired him. He understands horses the way most men never will. His wife May is a fine cook. She'll teach you Western dishes if you're interested. Kate filed this information away. A mixed-blood rancher who hired Chinese workers. No wonder some in town had opinions. The road climbed out of the valley, snow muffling the wagon wheels. Mountains rose on all sides, their peaks lost in low clouds. Pine trees stood dark against the white landscape. It's beautiful, Kate said softly. It's hard, Tom corrected. Beautiful, yes, but hard. Winters are brutal. Spring floods can take out bridges, fences, stock. Summer fires can burn everything you've built. And fall falls so short you barely notice before winter comes again. You're trying to scare me off. I'm trying to be honest. He glanced at her. The West isn't what the magazines back east make it out to be. It's not romantic. It's work and hardship and more work. People come out here thinking they'll find something they couldn't find back home, but mostly, they just find more problems. Maybe some of us are running from bigger problems. Kate watched the snow fall. Maybe some of us figure hard work and hardship are still better than what we left behind. Tom didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was softer. That why you answered Thornton's advertisement, running from something. Kate considered lying, but what was the point? My brother. After my father died, I had nowhere else to go. My brother made it clear I wasn't welcome, but I had no money to leave. When I saw Mr. Thornton's advertisement, it seemed like Providence. And your brother, he let you go. He was drunk when I left. Kate's voice flattened. I took the money from my father's lockbox before he could find it and drink it away. I'm sure he's furious, but he's not furious enough to follow me to Montana Territory. If he does, Tom said quietly, he'll answer to me. The simple statement shouldn't have meant as much as it did. Kate blinked against sudden heat in her eyes. The ranch appeared around a bend, a large log house with a wide porch, several outbuildings and corrals filled with horses. Lots of horses. Some stood in the falling snow, unbothered by the weather. Others moved restlessly, their dark shapes visible through the white curtain. Mustangs mostly, Tom said, following her gaze. I catch them wild, break them gentle, and sell them to buyers who want good riding horses. Some I keep for breeding. The bays pulling this wagon came from my best mare. He pulled up in front of the house. I'll show you inside, get you settled. Then I need to check on the stock before the storm gets worse. The interior of the house was larger than Kate had expected, but showed clear signs of neglect. Dishes were piled in the sink. Dust covered the surfaces. Boots and coats lay where they'd been dropped. I'm not much for housekeeping, Tom admitted, looking embarrassed. My mother tried to teach me, but after she died, Father didn't see the point. Said keeping house was women's work. And after he died, I hired Mrs. Whitmore. She kept everything running smooth for 3 years until her daughter got sick. He gestured toward the stairs. Your room's the first door on the right. Mine's at the end of the hall. Sam sometimes sleeps in the spare room if we're working late, but I'll make sure he knows you're here now. Kate climbed the stairs, Tom following with her bag. The bedroom was simple but clean. A bed with a real mattress, a chest of drawers, a small desk under a window that looked toward the mountains. It's perfect, Kate said, meaning it. Tom set her bag on the bed. Shimon, get settled. There's bread and cheese in the kitchen if you're hungry. I'll be back before dark. After he left, Kate sat on the bed listening to the house settle around her. Downstairs, the door closed. Through the window, she watched Tom cross the yard toward the corrals, his long stride confident in the snow. She'd made a decision in that hardware store that could be brilliant or disastrous. She'd agreed to live in a stranger's house, work for a man she'd known for less than an hour, in a territory where winter was just beginning. But for the first time since her father died, Kate felt something other than fear or rage. She felt like maybe, just maybe, she'd found a place to catch her breath. Downstairs, she explored the kitchen. The pantry held staples: flour, sugar, coffee, salt pork, dried beans. The root cellar, accessed through a trapdoor, contained potatoes, carrots, and onions. Not fancy, but she could work with it. Kate built up the fire in the stove and started bread dough. While it rose, she tackled the dishes. Outside, the snow fell harder and the light began to fade. She was pulling a venison roast from the oven when the door opened. Tom stamped snow from his boots, then stopped when he saw the table set, bread, sliced vegetables, steaming. You didn't have to. I'm earning my keep, Kate interrupted. Besides, I was hungry. They ate in silence at first, the only sounds the clink of forks and the wind outside. Finally, Tom spoke. You asked earlier why I offered you work. Want the honest answer? Kate nodded. I saw how you stood up to Thornton. Most women would have cried or begged. You got angry instead, called him a coward to his face. Tom's eyes held approval. My mother was like that, fierce. She died when I was 12, but I remember her standing up to men twice her size when they tried to cheat my father on horse trades. She never backed down. Your father raised you alone after that, if you can call it raising. Tom's expression darkened. He was ashamed of marrying a Shoshone woman. After she died, he tried to pretend that part of me didn't exist, sent me to school where the other boys called me names, made me cut my hair short, forbade me from speaking Shoshone or using any of my mother's teachings with the horses. But you grew your hair back, Kate observed. After he died, yes. And I started using my mother's methods again. Turns out she knew more about horses than any white man I've met. Pride colored his voice. The ranch has prospered since I stopped pretending to be something I'm not. Kate understood. That's why you helped me today. You know what it's like to be rejected for who you are." "Maybe." Tom stood gathering plates. "Or maybe I just don't like bullies. Get some rest. Tomorrow starts early on a ranch." After he went upstairs, Kate sat by the fire watching shadows dance on the walls. Outside, wolves howled in the distance, and the wind drove snow against the windows. She'd escaped Philadelphia, survived Elias Thornton's rejection, found work with a man who seemed decent if guarded. But Kate knew better than to relax. Life had taught her that when things seemed to be looking up, disaster was usually waiting around the corner. She just hoped that this time, maybe she was wrong. Dawn came cold and gray, the kind of December morning that made every breath visible and every movement an effort against the freeze. Kate woke to the sound of men's voices outside and the sharp crack of an axe splitting wood. She dressed quickly in the dim light, layering her warmest dress over 2 petticoats, and made her way downstairs. The kitchen was empty, but someone had already started the fire in the stove. Coffee sat in a pot still warm. Through the window, she watched Tom and another man working near the barn, their movements efficient despite the cold. Kate poured herself coffee and started breakfast. Bacon, eggs, biscuits. Simple food, but hot and filling. By the time the men came in stamping snow from their boots, the table was set. "Miss Kate." The second man removed his hat, revealing weathered features and gray-streaked black hair. "Sam Chen. Tom told me you'd arrived." "Mr. Chen." Kate handed him a plate. "Please sit." "Just Sam." He took the offered food with a nod of thanks. "My wife May will visit this afternoon. She's eager to meet you." They ate quickly the way working men do when daylight is precious. Tom glanced at Kate between bites. "One of the mares is due to foal any day. I'll need to check on her frequently. If you hear me moving around at night, that's why." "I can help," Kate offered. "I assisted with births in my father's shop draft horses mostly." Sam and Tom exchanged looks. "Might be useful," Sam said carefully. "This mare's her first foal. She's nervous." After breakfast, Tom showed Kate around the property. The barn was large and well-maintained, divided into stalls for the breeding stock and a large open area for breaking horses. The forge stood in a separate building, cold and unused. Kate stopped in the doorway, breathing in the familiar scent of old ash and metal. Her fingers itched to touch the tools hanging on the walls. "My father built this before he died," Tom said quietly. "He was a decent smith, but not great. After he passed, I tried to keep it up, but I don't have the skill. Mostly I buy what I need from Billings or make do with inferior work from the hardware store." Kate moved to the anvil, running her hand over its surface. "This is good iron, well maintained." "You really know smithing? I'll show you." Kate began checking the forge, testing the bellows, examining the coal supply. "If you can get this fire hot enough, I'll make you a demonstration shoe this afternoon." "Deal." Tom's smile was genuine. "But first we've got 20 horses to feed and water." The morning passed in hard work. Kate learned the rhythm of ranch life, the feeding schedules, the careful observation of each animal, the constant maintenance required to keep everything running. Her hands grew cold despite her gloves, and her back ached from lifting hay bales, but it felt good. Honest work. Work that tired her body, but left her mind quiet. Around noon, a small Chinese woman appeared at the kitchen door, her arms full of covered dishes. "You must be Kate." Her English was accented but clear. "I am May. I brought lunch and some things to welcome you." Kate helped her unload food-steamed buns, stir-fried vegetables, and a clay pot of fragrant soup. "You're very kind," Kate said, overwhelmed by the gesture. May waved this away. "Sam says you are alone here. It is not good for a woman to be alone. I will visit often, teach you what you need to know." Over lunch, May explained the unspoken rules of ranch life. Where to buy supplies in town and which shopkeepers to avoid. How to preserve food for the long winter. Which neighbors were friendly and which would never accept an outsider. "Mrs. Whitmore, the old housekeeper, she was liked," May said carefully. "People will compare you to her. Also, some will talk because you are young and unmarried living in Tom's house. Let them talk, Kate said, echoing her words from the day before. May smiled. Good. This is the right spirit. But be careful. Mr. Thornton's sister. She is making trouble already. She tells people you are... She paused, searching for words. A woman of poor virtue. Kate's jaw tightened. I've been here one day. That is all she needs. She says Tom took you from her brother's store like stealing property. That you must have done something to bewitch him. May's expression was sympathetic. I tell you this, not to frighten you, but to prepare you. Small towns can be cruel to women they decide are improper. After May left, Kate stood at the kitchen window watching snow fall over the corrals. She'd been naive to think her troubles ended when she left Philadelphia. She'd simply traded one set of problems for another. That afternoon, she fired up the forge. Tom and Sam watched as she worked the bellows, heating the iron until it glowed orange-red. Her movements were automatic, learned from years at her father's side. She shaped a horseshoe quickly and efficiently, then quenched it in the water trough. Good work, Sam said, examining the shoe. Better than anything Thornton sells. Tom held the shoe up to the light. How long would it take you to shoe all 20 horses? If I work steady, maybe 3 days. Longer if any needs special fitting. Do it. Tom's decision was immediate. I'll pay you extra standard smithing rates. That's in addition to your housekeeping wages. Kate felt something loosen in her chest. This was real. She had real skills that were valued, real work that mattered. She wasn't just a mail-order bride who'd been rejected. She was a blacksmith. The next 3 days fell into a rhythm. Mornings, Kate helped with the horses and prepared meals. Afternoons, she worked in the forge while Tom brought horses in one by one. He'd hold them steady while she trimmed hooves and fitted new shoes, his hands gentle on the nervous animals. They didn't talk much during these sessions, but Kate found herself acutely aware of his presence. The way he murmured to the horses in what she assumed was Shoshone. The careful strength in his hands. The rare smile when a particularly skittish horse finally calmed under his touch. On the 4th evening, Kate was cleaning up the forge when a commotion erupted near the corrals. She ran outside to find Tom and Sam struggling with a young stallion, blood streaming from Tom's arm. He spooked, Sam called, caught Tom with a hoof. Kate was at Tom's side in seconds. Let me see. It's nothing. Let me see. She used the voice that had worked on her father when he'd been stubborn about injuries. Tom allowed her to examine the gash running from his elbow to his wrist. It was deep, but clean. Inside, Kate ordered. Sam, can you finish with the stallion? In the kitchen, she made Tom sit while she gathered supplies. Water, clean cloth, whiskey. Her hands were steady as she cleaned the wound, though her stomach churned at the amount of blood. You've done this before, Tom observed through gritted teeth. My father was always injuring himself. Hazard of the trade. Kate began stitching her movements, careful and precise. My mother died when I was young. I learned to manage. I'm sorry about your mother. I barely remember her. My father raised me to be useful rather than ornamental. He said a woman who could work was worth 10 who could only look pretty. She tied off the final stitch. I used to resent it. Now I'm grateful. Tom looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Your father was a wise man. He was a drunk who gambled away everything we had, Kate said bluntly. But yes, in some ways he was wise. That night, Kate couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Tom's blood on her hands, kept feeling the weight of his trust as he'd let her stitch the wound without protest. She rose and went to the window. Below, a figure moved across the yard toward the barn. Tom checking on the pregnant mare. Kate grabbed her shawl and followed. The barn was warm, lit by a single lantern. Tom stood outside a stall watching the mare pace restlessly. Can't sleep either, he asked without turning. Thought you might need help. She's close. Could be tonight, could be tomorrow. He glanced at her. You should be resting. So should you with that arm. They stood in comfortable silence watching the mare. Finally, Tom spoke. Why did your father really teach you blacksmithing? Most fathers want their daughters to marry well, not learn a trade. Kate considered the question. I think he knew he was dying long before the accident that killed him. His liver was failing too much drink over too many years. He wanted to make sure I could survive without him, that I'd never have to depend on a man who might treat me poorly. Like your brother did. Yes. Kate's voice went flat. My father couldn't have known how bad Thomas would become, the drinking, the violence, but he made sure I had options. And yet you became a mail-order bride. Options and opportunity aren't the same thing. I had skills, but no way to use them. No woman can open a blacksmith shop in Philadelphia. No one would hire me. Thomas made it clear I was a burden. So when I saw Mr. Thornton's advertisement, she stopped, the familiar shame rising. You saw a chance to use your father's gift of survival, Tom finished. There's no shame in that. The mare whinnied a sound of distress. Tom was in the stall immediately, his hands running over her swollen belly. It's time, he said. Kate, I need you to stay at her head, keep her calm. The foaling took 2 hours. Kate held the mare's head, whispering soothing nonsense while Tom worked with practiced hands. When the foal finally slid into the world, a perfect bay colt, Kate felt tears on her cheeks. First birth, Tom asked gently, clearing the foal's nostrils. First one I've been fully part of. My father usually handled the actual births. She watched the colt struggle to stand. It's beautiful. It's life. Tom's voice was reverent. This is why I do this work. Not for the money, though that matters, but for this bringing new life into the world, watching something wild become willing to trust. The colt finally gained its feet and began nursing. Tom sat back exhausted, his injured arm cradled against his chest. You need rest, Kate said firmly. That wound could reopen. Yes, ma'am. His smile was tired but genuine. They walked back to the house through falling snow. At the stairs, Tom paused. Thank you for your help tonight, for everything since you arrived. You gave me a chance when I had none, Kate said. I'm the one who should be thanking you. Maybe we're even then. Kate climbed the stairs, aware of Tom watching her go. In her room, she sat by the window watching the first light of dawn color the mountains. Something was shifting between them, something that felt dangerous and inevitable at the same time. She'd come to Montana to survive. She was beginning to wonder if she might do more than that. The following Sunday, Tom asked if she wanted to attend church services in town. We don't have to, he said carefully. I usually go, but I understand if you'd rather not face the gossip yet. I'll go. Kate lifted her chin. I have nothing to hide. The church was a simple white building with a cross above the door. People were gathering outside when Tom helped Kate down from the wagon. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Kate kept her expression neutral as they walked toward the entrance. An older woman with kind eyes approached. Thomas, good to see you. And this must be Miss Brennan. Mrs. Patterson, this is Kate Brennan. Kate, Mrs. Patterson runs the boarding house. Welcome to Lonesome Creek, dear. Mrs. Patterson's smile was genuine. Don't mind the stares. Give them a week, and they'll find something else to gossip about. But not everyone was as welcoming. Elias Thornton stood near the church steps with a sharp-faced woman who could only be his sister Lila. She looked Kate up and down with obvious disdain. Brother told me about you, Lila said loudly enough for nearby people to hear. Came all this way for a husband and ended up in a bachelor's household instead. Convenient. Kate felt heat flood her face, but before she could respond, Tom stepped forward. Miss Thornton, I suggest you mind your tongue. Kate works for me as a housekeeper, and blacksmith positions your brother's rejection forced her into. If you have concerns about propriety, perhaps you should address them to the man who broke his word." Elias's face turned purple. "Now see here." Inside Elias, a tall man in clerical clothing appeared in the doorway. "This is the Lord's house. We'll have no arguments on his doorstep." "Reverend Harding," Lila began. "Inside, all of you." The Reverend's voice was kind but firm. "We're here to worship, not to tear each other down." The service passed in a blur for Kate. She was intensely aware of the whispers, the sideways glances, but she was also aware of Tom sitting beside her, his presence solid and reassuring, of Mrs. Patterson catching her eye and winking, of Sam and May Chen across the aisle, May turning to smile at her. After the service, Reverend Harding made a point of introducing himself. "Miss Brennan, welcome. I hope Lonesome Creek will become a true home for you." He glanced at Tom. "I heard about Elias's behavior. For what it's worth, I think Thomas showed great Christian charity in offering you employment." "Thank you, Reverend. If you need anything spiritual counsel, someone to talk to, my door is always open." On the ride home, Kate was quiet. Finally she spoke. "Is it always like this? The staring, the judgment." "For me, yes, since I was a boy." Tom's hands were steady on the reins. "My mother's people, they judged her for marrying a white man. The white people judged my father for marrying a Shoshone woman. I was caught in between, acceptable to neither side. That's not fair." "No." His voice was matter-of-fact. "But it's reality. You learn to live with it, or it destroys you. I chose to live with it. By isolating yourself out here." Tom glanced at her sharply. "Is that what you think I'm doing?" "I think you've built a life where you don't have to deal with people's prejudice every day, where you can work with horses who don't care about your heritage." Kate paused. "I think I'm starting to understand why." "And you?" Tom asked. "What are you running from besides your brother?" Kate considered lying, but what was the point? "I'm running from being invisible. In Philadelphia, I was the dead professor's daughter, then the drunk blacksmith's daughter, then the burden my brother had to feed. No one saw me, just what I represented or what they could take from me." "I see you," Tom said quietly. The words hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning. Kate wasn't sure she was ready to unpack. That week, a cold snap hit Montana territory with brutal force. Temperatures dropped so low that water froze in seconds. Kate woke one morning to find frost coating the inside of her bedroom window in elaborate patterns. Downstairs, Tom was already up pacing. "Two of the horses broke through the fence last night. Sam's out looking for them, but if they're in the high country, they could freeze before we find them. I'll help search." "Kate, it's 20 below. You're not dressed for." "Then I'll dress warmer. You need every person you can get." She bundled herself in every warm piece of clothing she owned, and Tom gave her a spare sheepskin coat that hung to her knees. They rode out at dawn, the cold so intense it hurt to breathe. The search took hours. They found the first horse, a young mare sheltered in a stand of pines. But the second, a valuable stallion Tom had been training, was nowhere. "We have to keep looking," Tom said, though Kate could see the worry in his eyes. "That horse represents 6 months of work and a buyer in Denver willing to pay good money." They rode deeper into the high country, calling for the stallion. Kate's hands were numb despite her gloves. Her face felt frozen. Then she heard it, a horse's whinny, distant but distinct. "There." She pointed toward a ravine. They found the stallion trapped on a narrow ledge, unable to climb up or down. Tom dismounted carefully. "I'll need to climb down with a rope." "With your injured arm?" Kate shook her head. "I'm lighter. I'll go." "Kate, we're wasting time arguing." She was down the rope before he could protest further, her hands burning despite the cold. The stallion's eyes showed white with fear. "Easy," Kate murmured the way she'd heard Tom talk to nervous horses. "Easy now." It took 15 minutes to get the rope around the stallion and another 10 for Tom to pull them both up, but finally they stood on solid ground. Tom looked at her with something like awe. You could have fallen. But I didn't. Kate's teeth were chattering so hard she could barely speak. They rode back in silence, but when they reached the barn, Tom caught her arm. What you did today that was either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both. Kate tried to smile through her shivers. I can't afford to lose that stallion. His voice was rough. But I also can't afford to lose you. The words hit Kate like a physical blow. She looked up at him, seeing something in his dark eyes that made her breath catch for reasons that had nothing to do with the cold. Tom! A shout from the house interrupted them. Sam stood in the doorway. Riders coming? Looks like the sheriff and someone else. The tension of the moment shattered. Tom released Kate's arm and strode toward the house. By the time Kate followed, two men on horseback were pulling up to the porch. The sheriff was a heavy-set man with a gray mustache. The second man was thin, dark-haired, and terribly familiar. Kate's world tilted. Thomas, she whispered. My brother Thomas. Her brother dismounted his face, showing the effects of hard travel and harder drinking. His eyes, when they found Kate, were cold. Sister. Found you at last. Kate's legs threatened to give out. She gripped the porch railing, her knuckles white against the wood. What are you doing here, Thomas? Her brother's smile was ugly. Come to collect what's mine. You stole from me, sister, took father's lockbox and ran like a thief in the night. That money was mine, Kate said, her voice shaking. Father left it for me. Father left everything to me. You were just living under my roof out of charity. Thomas turned to the sheriff. Tell her, Sheriff. Tell her what theft is. Sheriff Morrison looked uncomfortable. Now, Mr. Brennan, we talked about this on the ride out. Your sister is of legal age. If she chose to leave Philadelphia with stolen property. Thomas's voice rose. Property that belongs to me by right of inheritance. Tom stepped forward, placing himself between Kate and her brother. Miss Brennan is under my employment. If you have legal grievances, you can file them through proper channels. But you're not taking her anywhere today. Thomas looked Tom up and down with open contempt. And who are you, the half-breed she's been whoring for? The word hung in the cold air like poison. Kate saw Tom's jaw tighten, saw his hands curl into fists. That's enough, Sheriff Morrison said sharply. Mr. Brennan, I brought you here as a courtesy, but I won't tolerate that language. Apologize or leave. I don't apologize to savages, Thomas spat. I came for my sister and my money. I'm not leaving without both. Then you're leaving with neither, Kate said, finding her voice. I'm not going anywhere with you, Thomas. Not today. Not ever. Her brother's face darkened. You ungrateful. I said that's enough. The sheriff's hand moved to his gun belt. Mr. Merrick, is Miss Brennan here of her own free will? She is, Tom said steadily. She works for me as housekeeper and blacksmith. She's paid fair wages and treated with respect. Blacksmith. Thomas laughed, the sound harsh. She tell you how she played at smithing while I had to work real jobs. How father indulged her foolish notions instead of teaching her to be a proper woman. Your father taught her to survive, Tom said quietly. Something you clearly never learned to value. Thomas lunged forward. Sam appeared from nowhere, stepping between him and Tom. I think you should leave now, Sam said calmly. Don't touch me, you yellow. Sam moved so fast, Kate barely saw it. One moment Thomas was standing, the next he was on the ground, Sam's knee in his back. I said leave, Sam repeated. The polite way or the hard way? Your choice. Sheriff Morrison sighed. Mr. Brennan, I strongly suggest you return to town with me. File a complaint if you must, but this isn't the way. Thomas struggled under Sam's hold. She stole from me. She owes me. I owe you nothing, Kate said, her voice stronger now. You took everything father built and drank it away. You used me as a servant and a punching bag. I took what was rightfully mine, and I left. That's not theft. That's survival. The courts, the courts in Philadelphia have no jurisdiction here, Sheriff Morrison interrupted. Montana Territory has its own laws, Mr. Brennan, and from what I can see, your sister is employed housed and not in any distress. Unless you have proof of actual theft documents, witnesses, there's nothing I can do. She admitted it, Thomas snarled. You heard her. I heard her say she took money her father left for her. That's not the same as theft. The sheriff gestured to Sam. Let him up. Mr. Brennan, you're welcome to stay in Lonesome Creek and consult with a lawyer if you wish, but you're not welcome at this ranch unless Mr. Merrick invites you. Are we clear? Sam released Thomas, who scrambled to his feet, brushing snow from his coat. This isn't over, Catherine. I'll find a way to make you pay for your betrayal. My name is Kate, she said quietly. And I'm done being afraid of you. Thomas mounted his horse, his face twisted with rage. You'll regret this, both of you. They watched him ride away with the sheriff, neither speaking until the figures disappeared over the ridge. You all right? Tom asked finally. Kate realized she was shaking. Not from cold this time. I don't know. I thought I didn't think he'd follow me this far. Men like that don't give up easy, Sam said. They see the world as owing them something. When it doesn't deliver, they look for someone to blame. Tom touched Kate's shoulder gently. Come inside. You're frozen through. In the kitchen, May appeared with hot tea and blankets, as if she'd been waiting. Sam sent word when the riders arrived, she explained. I thought you might need a woman's presence. Kate accepted the tea with trembling hands. He's going to cause trouble. I know him. He won't just leave. Let him try. Tom said, his voice hard. He touches you, he answers to me. And me, Sam added. And half the men in this county, May said firmly. You think we don't know what it's like to run from bad situations? Why you think Sam and I came to Montana Territory? We understand, Kate. We stand with you. The words cracked something open in Kate's chest. She'd been alone so long fighting her own battles that the idea of people standing with her felt foreign and overwhelming. I should leave, she said suddenly. I'm bringing danger to your home, to your reputation. Stop. Tom's command was gentle but firm. You're not going anywhere unless you choose to. And if you choose to stay, we'll face whatever comes together. But Thomas is one man with a grudge and no legal standing. Tom knelt in front of her chair. Kate, I've faced down worse than your brother. So has Sam. So has everyone who's built a life in this territory. We don't run from bullies. Kate looked at his face, seeing determination and something else. Something that made her heart beat faster. Why? She whispered. Why are you doing this for me? Tom held her gaze. I think you know why. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. Then May cleared her throat. I'll make supper. You all need food and rest. That night, Kate couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Thomas's face, hearing his threats. Around midnight, she gave up and went downstairs. Tom was in the kitchen, staring at the cold stove. Can't sleep either? Kate asked. Keep thinking about your brother. About what kind of man follows someone 2,000 miles out of spite. Tom looked at her. Kate, I need you to tell me the truth. Did he ever do more than hit you? Kate understood what he was asking. No. Thomas enjoyed having power over me, but he never crossed that line. His favorite weapon was his fists and his words. He'd tell me I was worthless, that no man would want me, that I'd end up alone and destitute without his protection. But you left anyway. Because staying meant dying. Maybe not physically, but in every way that mattered. Kate wrapped her arms around herself. The night I left, he came home drunk. Said he'd arranged for me to marry his friend Marcus, a man twice my age who'd buried 3 wives already. Said Marcus would pay good money for a young wife. That's when I knew I had to go. Tom's expression darkened. He was going to sell you. Essentially, yes. Kate's voice was flat. So I took the money from Father's lockbox. The money Father had told me was for emergencies, and I bought a ticket west. I answered Mr. Thornton's advertisement because it was the first one I saw. I didn't care where I went as long as it was far from Philadelphia. And now he's here. And now he's here, Kate echoed. I'm sorry, Tom. I've brought my problems to your door. Our door now, Tom corrected. You work here. You live here. That makes this your home too. Kate wanted to believe him, but fear was a hard habit to break. What if he files a legal complaint? What if he finds a way to force me back? Then we'll fight it. Tom stood moving closer. Kate, I'm not letting him take you. Not without a fight. Not without giving you every option I can provide. Why? Kate asked again. Why does this matter so much to you? Tom was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low and raw. Because I know what it's like to be told you're worthless because of who you are. My father's people looked at me and saw a half-breed. My mother's people looked at me and saw betrayal. I grew up hearing I didn't belong anywhere, that I was a mistake that shouldn't have happened. He paused, his dark eyes intense on her face. My mother used to tell me that the world would try to break me, but I had to choose whether to let it. She said I could be bitter about what I couldn't change, or I could be strong because of it. When she died, I almost chose bitter. My father certainly did. But then I realized that would mean her death had broken me after all. Kate listened, barely breathing. When I saw you standing in Thornton's store refusing to beg or cry, calling him a coward to his face, I saw someone who'd chosen strength. Someone who'd been beaten down, but wouldn't stay down. Tom's voice roughened. I saw someone worth fighting for. The confession hung between them. Kate's heart hammered against her ribs. I'm not strong, she whispered. I'm terrified. I've been terrified since the moment I left Philadelphia. Bravery isn't the absence of fear, Tom said. It's moving forward despite it. You've been brave every day since you arrived, Kate. Don't let your brother's poison make you forget that. Kate stood, closing the distance between them. In the dim lamplight, Tom's face was half in shadow, but she could see the truth in his eyes. I'm afraid of this too, she admitted. Whatever this is between us. I know. Tom's hand came up, his fingers gentle against her cheek. I'm afraid too. I've spent years keeping people at a distance because it was easier than risking rejection, safer than hoping someone might accept all of me. Your heritage isn't something to be ashamed of. No. His smile was sad. But it's something the world judges. Just like the world judges a woman who runs from her family, who works a man's trade, who lives in a bachelor's household. Then maybe we're both tired of letting the world make our choices for us, Kate said. Tom's thumb traced her jawline, his touch careful, as if she were something precious that might break. If I kiss you now, he said quietly, it changes everything. You understand that? Yes. Kate's voice was steady despite her racing heart. I understand. He lowered his head slowly, giving her time to pull away. When their lips met, it was gentle questioning. Kate's hands came up to rest against his chest, feeling his heartbeat as rapid as her own. The kiss deepened, and Kate felt something inside her unlock. Not just desire, though, that was there too, but something larger, hope, possibility. The startling realization that maybe she didn't have to face the world alone anymore. When they finally parted, both breathing hard, Tom rested his forehead against hers. I should apologize, he said roughly, for overstepping. Don't. Kate's fingers curled into his shirt. Don't apologize for something I wanted too. Your brother arrives making threats, and I take advantage. You're not taking advantage of anything. Kate pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Thomas doesn't get to control my life anymore. Not who I work for, not where I live, and certainly not who I... She stopped, unable to finish the sentence. Who you care about, Tom supplied softly. Kate nodded, not trusting her voice. I care about you too, Tom said. More than I probably should, given you've been here less than a month. But I can't seem to help it. So what do we do now? Now we sleep. Tomorrow we figure out how to deal with your brother. And after that, he smiled, the expression transforming his usually serious face. After that, we see what happens. The next morning brought new complications. Tom was in the barn when Lila Thornton's buggy appeared, her sharp features set in lines of righteous indignation. Kate met her at the door, blocking entry. "Miss Thornton, what brings you here?" "Your brother, that's what." Lila's voice was shrill. "He's staying at my boarding house, filling the whole town with stories about your shameful behavior. Running away from family, stealing money, living here in sin with that half-breed." "Watch your tongue," Kate said coldly. "Mr. Merrick is a respected rancher and my employer. If you've come to spread gossip, you can leave." "I've come to offer Christian charity." Lila sniffed. "Your brother says you can return to Philadelphia with him all forgiven. He's willing to overlook your theft if you come home where you belong." "I am home," Kate said. "This is where I belong. Living in a man's house, unmarried, unprotected. I'm protected by honest work and fair wages. More than I can say for the life Thomas offered me being sold to his friend like cattle." Lila's eyes widened. "Your brother said nothing about—" "Of course he didn't. Men like Thomas never tell the whole truth." Kate's voice was steady. "Did he mention the bruises?" "The split lips. The nights I went to bed hungry because he'd spent the grocery money on whiskey." That's family business." "It was, until he followed me here and made it public business. Now everyone will know what kind of man he is, including you, Miss Thornton, since you're housing him." Lila backed toward her buggy, flustered. "Well, I never the impropriety." "Good day, Miss Thornton." Kate closed the door. Her hands were shaking again, but this time with anger rather than fear. She was done being ashamed, done letting other people's judgment control her choices. Tom found her in the kitchen, staring out the window. "Lila Thornton just left like the devil was chasing her," he observed. "What did you say? The truth?" Kate turned to face him. "About Thomas, about why I left. I'm tired of hiding, Tom. Tired of pretending I don't have a past. And if the town talks, let them talk. I know who I am now. I'm not Catherine Brennan the burden. I'm Kate, and I'm a blacksmith, and I work for my keep, and I—" She hesitated, then plunged forward. "I'm falling in love with a good man, and I don't care what anyone thinks about it." Tom crossed the kitchen in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. "Say that again," he demanded. "I'm falling in love with you." Kate's voice was muffled against his chest. "Probably have been since you defended me in that hardware store." "Kate," her name was a prayer on his lips. "I'm falling too. Have been falling since I saw you refuse to break." They stood there holding each other until Sam's voice called from outside. "Boss, we got more visitors. The Reverend and Sheriff Morrison." Tom released Kate reluctantly. "This should be interesting." Reverend Harding and the sheriff stood on the porch, their expressions serious but not hostile. "Mr. Merrick, Miss Brennan," the Reverend said. "May we come in?" Over coffee, the sheriff explained. "Your brother's filed a formal complaint, Miss Brennan. Claims you stole $50 from him. It was my father's money." "I believe you," Sheriff Morrison interrupted, "but the complaint gives him legal standing to demand the money's return or your arrest." Kate's stomach dropped. "Arrest?" "He can't prove the money was stolen," Tom said sharply. "Actually, he brought documentation. Your father's will leaving everything to Thomas Brennan. No mention of money set aside for Catherine." The sheriff looked apologetic. In the eyes of the law, the money was his property. "My father told me that money was mine," Kate said desperately. "He said it was for emergencies, for if I ever needed to leave. Verbal promises aren't legal documents, I'm afraid." The sheriff paused. "However, there might be a solution." Reverend Harding leaned forward. "The law gives a husband authority over his wife's debts and property. If Miss Brennan were married, her husband could assume responsibility for the debt and negotiate payment with her brother." Kate's mind was spinning. "You're saying I should marry someone to avoid arrest? I'm saying marriage would complicate the legal situation enough that your brother would likely give up and return east. The Reverend's eyes moved between Kate and Tom. Unless I'm misreading the situation, that might not be an unwelcome complication. Tom's hand found Kate's under the table, his fingers warm and steady. Kate, he said quietly, I know this isn't how it should happen. I wanted to court you properly, give you time to be certain. But if you're willing, if you trust me enough, I'm asking you to be my wife. Kate looked at him, seeing the man who'd defended her, protected her, taught her that she deserved respect. The man whose kiss had made her believe in possibilities again. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. Today, the Reverend said firmly. Before your brother can file additional complaints, Sheriff Morrison can serve as witness. Everything moved quickly after that. May appeared with a dress pale blue wool, simple but beautiful. Sam gathered ranch hands as additional witnesses. By noon, Kate stood on Tom's porch in borrowed finery, her hand trembling in his as Reverend Harding opened his Bible. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here. Stop this immediately. Thomas Brennan's voice cut across the Reverend's words. He stood at the edge of the yard, Elias Thornton behind him. This is a fraud. She's marrying him to avoid prosecution. She's marrying him because they choose to marry, Reverend Harding said calmly. Unless you have legal grounds to object, she's a thief, a debt your new brother-in-law will assume, the sheriff interrupted. Mr. Merrick, do you accept financial responsibility for any debts Miss Brennan may owe? I do, Tom said without hesitation. Thomas's face purpled. $50, plus another $50 for my travel expenses and time lost from work. Done, Tom said. I'll pay you $100, and you'll sign a document releasing all claims against Kate. Sheriff Morrison will witness it. You can't. Take the money or leave empty-handed, Tom said flatly. Your choice. Thomas stared at his sister, hatred naked in his eyes. You think you've won. You think marrying this savage makes you respectable. I think marrying a good man makes me lucky, Kate said. Something you'll never understand. We'll continue, Reverend Harding said firmly. Thomas Merrick, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. Tom's voice rang clear. Catherine Brennan, do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Kate looked at Tom, seeing her future in his dark eyes. A future built on respect and partnership, and the kind of love that grew from truly seeing each other. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The Reverend smiled. You may kiss your bride. Tom's kiss was gentle, mindful of their audience, but Kate felt the promise in it. When they parted, she was Catherine Merrick, and the world looked different somehow. Thomas left with his money, pausing only to spit in the snow at Kate's feet. Elias followed his expression sour. The other witnesses cheered, and May pulled Kate into a fierce hug. You are family now, May whispered. Truly family. That evening, after the guests had left, and the ranch had settled into quiet, Kate stood in what was now their bedroom. Tom had insisted she take the larger room at the end of the hall, watching snow fall outside the window. Tom entered quietly, closing the door behind him. Having second thoughts? He asked. No. Kate turned to face him. Just trying to understand how my life changed so completely in 3 weeks. We can take this slow, Tom said carefully. The marriage is legal, but we don't have to. I mean, if you need time. Kate crossed to him, placing her fingers over his lips. I married you because I wanted to, not just to escape Thomas, but because I choose you. Choose us. She lowered her hand. Do you want time? No. The word was rough. But I want you to be certain. You've been through so much. I'm certain. Kate's voice was steady. I'm choosing you, Tom. All of you. The parts the world judges and the parts only I get to see. I'm choosing this life, this ranch, this future. I'm choosing hope instead of fear. Tom pulled her close, his arms strong around her. Then we'll build that future together, starting now. Their kiss was different this time, deeper, more urgent, full of promise and possibility. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Kate smiled. "Mrs. Merrick," she said, testing the name. "That's going to take some getting used to." "We have time," Tom assured her. "We have all the time in the world." Outside, snow continued to fall over Montana territory, covering tracks, making everything clean and new. Inside, two people who'd been told they didn't belong anywhere had found belonging in each other, and that was enough. Kate woke to pale winter light filtering through frost-covered windows, and the solid warmth of Tom's body beside her. For a moment, she lay still, testing the reality of her new life. Married. To a man she'd known less than a month. A man she'd fallen in love with, despite every reasonable instinct telling her to guard her heart. Tom's arm tightened around her waist, pulling her closer. "You're thinking too loud," he murmured against her hair. "I can feel it." Kate smiled. "Just trying to believe this is real." "It's real." He kissed her shoulder. "You're my wife. I'm your husband. Real as anything I've ever known." The word wife still felt strange in Kate's mind, like a coat that didn't quite fit yet. She'd spent so long being nobody's anything, not wanted daughter, not valued sister, that belonging to someone felt dangerous and precious at the same time. "Tom," she said quietly, "about yesterday, the money you paid Thomas is gone and forgotten. Consider it payment for getting you away from him permanently. $100 isn't forgotten. That's months of wages, and worth every penny if it means you're safe." Tom propped himself up on one elbow, looking down at her. "Kate, I didn't marry you out of obligation or charity. I married you because I want you here, want you in my life. The money just made it legal." Kate touched his face, feeling the roughness of morning stubble under her fingers. "I'll pay you back. From my smithing wages." "You'll do no such thing. That money is yours to keep or spend as you choose." His expression grew serious. "I meant what I said in our vows. What's mine is yours now. The ranch, the horses, everything. We're partners in this." "Partners," Kate repeated. The word felt better than wife, more solid. "I like that." "Good." Tom kissed her slow and thorough until Kate forgot about debts and doubts and everything except the way he made her feel valued, desired, seen. A knock at the door interrupted them. "Boss!" Sam's voice called. "Sorry to disturb, but we got a situation with the fence line. Looks like something big came through in the night." Tom groaned. "I'll be down in 10 minutes. After he left, Kate dressed quickly in work clothes. Her blue wool dress was beautiful but impractical for ranch life. In the kitchen, she found May already preparing breakfast. "You should still be in bed," May said, smiling. "Is tradition for new bride to rest." "I'm a rancher's wife now. Ranchers don't rest." Kate began slicing bread. "What's this about the fence?" "Bear, maybe, or elk herd. Sam will know when he sees tracks." May paused. "Kate, I want to say something about yesterday." Kate waited, knife still in her hand. "I was worried," May admitted, "that you married Tom just to escape your brother, that you would regret it. And now I see how you look at him, how he looks at you." May's smile widened. "Now I think you two found each other exactly when you needed to." Kate thought about this as she watched through the window. Tom and Sam were examining something in the snow, their breath visible in the cold air. Even from a distance, she could read Tom's body language, the set of his shoulders, the way he gestured while explaining something. She knew him. In 3 weeks, she'd learned to read his moods, understand his silences, see past his guardedness to the man underneath. And he knew her fears, and her strength, her past, and her possibilities. Maybe that was enough. Maybe love didn't need months or years to be real. Maybe sometimes it just needed the right people at the right moment. The men came in for breakfast, bringing cold air and news of bear tracks heading into the high country. "Big male," Sam reported. "Should be denned up by now, but this winter's been strange. Not cold enough, not enough snow early on. Could be he didn't find a good spot yet." "We'll need to check the stock twice daily," Tom said. "Make sure nothing's left vulnerable." After breakfast, Kate worked in the forge, while Tom and Sam reinforced the damaged fence. The familiar rhythm of hammer on anvil settled something in her chest. This she knew. This she was good at. When the world felt uncertain, metal and fire made sense. She was shaping a new hinge for the barn door when hoofbeats approached. Through the forge door she saw Reverend Harding dismounting. "Mrs. Merrick," he called. "Might I have a word?" Kate set down her hammer, wiping soot from her hands. "Of course, Reverend." Inside the house, she poured coffee, while the Reverend settled at the kitchen table. "I wanted to check on you," he said. "Yesterday was rather rushed. I hope you don't regret the circumstances." "I don't," Kate said honestly. "Though I imagine the town has opinions." "The town always has opinions." The Reverend's smile was kind. "Some are saying you trapped Thomas into marriage. Others say he rescued you from scandal. A few, the ones whose opinions matter, say you two made your own choice and deserve support." "And what do you say, Reverend?" "I say I've known Thomas Merrick since he was a boy, trying to find his place in a world that told him he didn't have one. I've watched him build this ranch through hard work and integrity. And yesterday, I saw him look at you the way every woman deserves to be looked at, like you're precious beyond measure." The Reverend paused. "I also saw you look at him the same way. So I say you both chose well." Kate felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you." "However," the Reverend continued, "I would be remiss if I didn't ask about your spiritual state. Your marriage was legal, but I'd like to offer pastoral counseling if you need it. Marriage is a partnership, yes, but also a covenant. It requires work and communication and grace." "I understand," Kate said. "My parents were happily married until my mother died. I remember how they talked to each other, how they made decisions together. That's what I want with Tom." "Then you're starting from a good place." The Reverend stood. "My door is always open, Mrs. Merrick, for both of you." After he left, Kate returned to the forge, but her concentration was broken. She kept thinking about covenants and partnerships and the weight of promises made in haste. That evening she found Tom in the barn, checking on the pregnant mare who'd foaled weeks earlier. The colt was growing strong, his legs already steady and sure. "Reverend Harding visited today," Kate said. Tom glanced at her. "To lecture us about propriety. To offer support, actually." Kate leaned against the stall door. "He said marriage requires work and communication and grace." "All true." Tom ran his hand along the mare's neck. "Kate, if you're having doubts—" "I'm not having doubts about you," Kate interrupted. "I'm having doubts about me, about whether I know how to be a wife. My mother died when I was 7. I barely remember her. And my father, he loved me, but he raised me like a son. Taught me smithing instead of sewing, how to shoe horses instead of how to run a household. You're running this household fine." "Am I?" Kate's voice rose. "I can barely cook beyond basics. I don't know how to preserve food properly or manage supplies for winter. May's been helping, but she shouldn't have to. And the women in town, they look at me like I'm a curiosity, the blacksmith bride who doesn't know her place." Tom left the stall, closing the distance between them. "Your place is wherever you choose it to be. If you want to work the forge, work the forge. If you want to learn preserving, May will teach you. But don't let other people's expectations define your worth." His hands framed her face. "I didn't marry you to get a conventional wife. I married you because you're Kate, stubborn and skilled and stronger than you know." "I'm scared," Kate admitted. "Scared I'll disappoint you. Scared I'll fail at this." "Then we'll fail together." Tom's smile was gentle. Kate, I've been alone most of my life. Even when my father was alive, I was alone. I learned to depend only on myself, to need nothing from anyone. It's a safe way to live, but a lonely one. He paused, his dark eyes intense on hers. You make me want to risk loneliness for partnership. Risk safety for connection. I don't need you to be perfect. I just need you to be here choosing us every day the way I choose us. Kate kissed him, pouring everything she couldn't say into the contact. When they parted, she rested her forehead against his chest. I choose us, she whispered. Every day. Even when I'm scared. Especially when you're scared, Tom corrected. That's when choosing matters most. The next week brought a cold snap that froze the creek solid and sent temperatures plummeting. Kate spent mornings in the forge. The fire kept her warm while she worked, and afternoons learning preserving techniques from May. You must think ahead, May explained, showing Kate how to pack meat in salt. Winter is long in Montana. Summer and fall we store everything we can. Come March we'll be grateful. Kate absorbed the lessons, her hands learning new skills. It was different from smithing, but satisfying in its own way, the alchemy of transforming summer's abundance into winter's security. She was helping May jar apples when Lila Thornton appeared at the door, her expression pinched. Mrs. Merrick, Lila said stiffly. I've come to apologize. Kate exchanged glances with May. Apologize. For believing your brother's lies. After he left town, I learned from others what kind of man he truly was, how he treated you. Lila's face reddened. I spoke harshly, and I was wrong. Apology accepted, Kate said carefully. However, Lila continued, I still believe there are proper ways to conduct oneself. And living in an unmarried man's household even as his employee was inappropriate. Good thing I'm married then, Kate said dryly. Lila's mouth thinned. A marriage of convenience to avoid scandal isn't the same as a true marriage. Then it's fortunate mine is both. Kate's voice hardened. Miss Thornton, I appreciate your apology, but my marriage is my business, unless you have other concerns. After Lila left, May laughed. That woman, she means well, but she cannot help meddling. She's right though, Kate said quietly. People see our marriage as a convenience, a way to solve my legal problems. And if it was, May challenged. If it started that way but became real, is that less valid than a long courtship? Kate didn't have an answer. That night, lying beside Tom in the darkness, Kate voiced her fears. Do you ever regret marrying me so quickly without time to be certain? Tom's arm tightened around her. Never. Do you? No. But I wonder if we would have married at all if Thomas hadn't forced the issue. Eventually, yes. Tom's voice was certain. Maybe not after 3 weeks, maybe after 3 months or 6, but I knew that first day in Thornton's store that you were someone special, someone worth pursuing. How could you know that? Because you didn't break. Tom shifted, turning to face her in the dim light. Kate, I've met plenty of women in my life. Some were kind, some were beautiful, but none of them looked at me and saw past what I am to who I am. You did, from the start. I saw a man who defended someone weaker, Kate said, who stood up for what was right even when it wasn't his fight. And I saw a woman who'd survived hell but still had fire in her eyes, who called a bully a coward without flinching. Tom kissed her softly. We recognized each other, Kate. That's rare. That's worth fighting for. Kate wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that what they'd built in 3 weeks could last a lifetime, but doubt was a hard habit to break. The doubt crystallized 2 days later when a well-dressed couple arrived at the ranch in an expensive carriage. The woman was beautiful, dark hair, elegant features, expensive furs. The man was older, distinguished, clearly wealthy. Thomas! The woman called, her voice carrying across the yard. It's been too long. Kate watched from the kitchen window as Tom emerged from the barn, his expression shifting from surprise to something darker. Caroline, he said flatly. What are you doing here? Is that any way to greet an old friend? The woman dismounted gracefully. Father and I were passing through on business. We had to stop and see how you've fared. Kate moved to the door, drawn by something in Tom's body language. Tension, wariness, old pain. You're looking well, Caroline continued. The ranch has prospered, I see. Father said you'd succeed despite everything. Despite my mother's heritage? Tom's voice was cold. You can say it, Caroline. You certainly said it often enough 10 years ago. Caroline had the grace to look embarrassed. I was young and foolish. I've changed. Have you? Tom's gaze moved to the older man still seated in the carriage. Still doing everything your father tells you. Now see here, the man began. Kate. Tom called, seeing her in the doorway. Come meet some old acquaintances. Kate approached, acutely aware of her work dress, her soot-stained hands, her wind-rough complexion. Next to Caroline's polished elegance, she felt like a child playing dress-up. This is my wife, Kate Merrick, Tom said, his hand finding hers. Kate, this is Caroline Westbrook and her father, Thomas Westbrook Sr. We knew each other years ago. Caroline's eyes widened. Your wife, Thomas, I had no idea. How wonderful. But her tone suggested anything but wonder. Her gaze swept over Kate, dismissing and assessing in equal measure. Pleased to meet you, Kate managed. When did you marry? Caroline asked. Recently, I assume. Last week, Tom said. Kate came from Philadelphia to work as my housekeeper and blacksmith. We fell in love and married. A blacksmith, Caroline repeated, as if he'd said dragon slayer. How unusual. Kate's father was a smith. She's skilled at the trade. I'm sure. Caroline's smile didn't reach her eyes. Well, we won't intrude. Father and I are staying in town for a few days. Perhaps you could join us for dinner. I'd love to catch up properly. We're busy with ranch work, Tom said. But thank you for the invitation. After they left, Kate stood in the yard feeling cold despite her coat. Who was she? She asked quietly. Tom's jaw tightened. Someone I was stupid enough to love once. Someone whose father paid me $500 to leave her alone. The words hit Kate like a blow. What? 10 years ago, I was young and foolish. I thought Caroline loved me despite everything, my heritage, my lack of wealth, my father's reputation as a drunk. Tom's voice was bitter. We were engaged. Secretly because her father would never approve. Then he found out. Kate waited, her heart hammering. Mr. Westbrook came to me with an offer, $500 to break the engagement and leave town for a year. He said Caroline deserved better than a half-breed with nothing to offer, that I was shaming her with my presumption. Tom met Kate's eyes. I told him to go to hell. Then Caroline came to me crying, begging me to take the money, saying her father would disown her if we married, that she couldn't live in poverty, couldn't bear the shame of being married to someone like me. So you took the money. I took the money, used it to expand the ranch after my father died, built everything I have today from Caroline's rejection. His smile was hard. I should probably thank her. She taught me that people will always choose wealth and status over love. Not always, Kate said softly. Tom looked at her sharply. Kate, I chose you over security, over returning to Philadelphia and the known world. I chose a man the town judges, a marriage people call convenient, a life that requires more courage than I knew I had. Kate stepped closer. So no, not always. Tom pulled her into his arms, holding her tight enough that she felt his heartbeat against her cheek. I'm sorry, he said roughly. Sorry you had to meet her. Sorry you had to hear about my failures. That wasn't failure. That was learning what you deserved. Kate pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Tom, I need to ask you something. Do you still love her? No. The answer was immediate and certain. What I felt for Caroline was young and naive. I thought love meant overlooking flaws, accepting scraps of affection. Now I know different. What do you know now? That love means seeing someone completely flaws and strengths and choosing them anyway. It means partnership and respect and the willingness to fight for each other. Tom cupped her face. It means what I feel for you, Kate, which is so far beyond what I felt for Caroline that I'm embarrassed I ever called that love. Kate believed him, wanted to believe him, but Caroline's elegant figure haunted her thoughts. That night, Kate couldn't sleep. She kept seeing Caroline's dismissive gaze, kept hearing the word blacksmith said like a curse. Around midnight, she rose and went downstairs. She was stoking the fire when Tom appeared. "Can't sleep?" he asked, thinking too much. Kate poked at the logs. "About Caroline. About how beautiful and refined she is." "Kate. About how I must seem to someone like her. Rough-handed and work-worn. A blacksmith playing at being a rancher's wife." Tom knelt beside her chair. "You're not playing at anything. You are a rancher's wife. My wife. And everything Caroline is on the outside, beautiful, refined, elegant, she's hollow inside. I learned that 10 years ago." "But you loved her once." "I loved who I thought she was. An illusion." Tom took Kate's hands. "With you there's no illusion. You're exactly who you present yourself to be, strong and skilled and fierce and real. Do you know how rare that is? How precious?" Kate wanted to believe him, but doubt whispered in her ear. The next day, Caroline appeared again, this time alone. "Mrs. Merrick," she said sweetly, "I was hoping we could talk. Woman to woman." Kate's instincts screamed danger, but she couldn't refuse without seeming childish. In the kitchen, Caroline accepted tea, but didn't drink it. "I wanted to apologize," she began. "For yesterday. I was surprised to see Thomas married, and I fear I was rude." "Apology accepted," Kate said carefully. "I also wanted to warn you." Caroline's expression shifted to concern. "About Thomas. About his temper." Kate's spine stiffened. "Tom doesn't have a temper." "Perhaps he's changed. But 10 years ago, when we were engaged, he could be quite volatile, especially when he'd been drinking." Caroline's voice was gentle, poisonous. "That's partly why Father paid him to leave. We were concerned for my safety." "That's a lie," Kate said flatly. "Is it?" Caroline's eyebrows rose. "Ask him about the night he broke his father's table, or the time he threw a whiskey bottle at the barn wall. Thomas has his mother's blood, passionate, unpredictable. My father warned me that such men can't be trusted in marriage." Kate stood her chair, scraping the floor. "I think you should leave Miss Westbrook." "Mrs. Westbrook now. I married 2 years ago." "Very well." Caroline rose gracefully. "But consider this, you've known Thomas mere weeks. I knew him for years. When his darkness emerges, remember I tried to warn you." After she left, Kate stood shaking with anger. The seeds of doubt Caroline had planted were exactly that, seeds meant to grow into poison. When Tom came in for lunch, Kate told him everything. "She's lying." Tom said, his voice hard. "I never raised a hand to her or anyone. I did break my father's table, but that was after he'd beaten me unconscious for speaking Shoshone. And yes, I threw a bottle at the barn, but I was 17 and drunk on grief after my mother died." Caroline's twisting those moments, making them about her, when they had nothing to do with her. "I believe you," Kate said. And she did. But Caroline's words had accomplished their goal, planting uncertainty, making Kate question how well she truly knew her husband. That evening, Sam appeared with news that some of the town's women were planning a visit, a traditional welcome for new brides. "May says you should prepare yourself," Sam warned. "They will ask many questions." The women arrived the next afternoon, 6 of them, led by Mrs. Patterson from the boarding house. They brought food and scrutiny in equal measure. "Such a quick courtship," one woman said, her eyes sharp. "You must have swept him off his feet, Mrs. Merrick." "Actually, I answered a mail-order bride advertisement," Kate said bluntly. When that fell through, Mr. Merrick offered me employment. We fell in love while working together." "How romantic," another woman murmured, though her tone suggested otherwise. Mrs. Patterson cleared her throat. "Ladies, we're here to welcome Kate, not interrogate her." But the questions continued about her family, her background, her skills. Kate answered honestly, refusing to be ashamed of her past or her trade. "A female blacksmith," one woman said doubtfully. "I've never heard of such a thing." "My father believed I should be able to support myself," Kate said. "He taught me a valuable trade. I'm grateful for that. But surely now that you're married, I'll continue smithing as needed. The ranch requires it and I enjoy the work." The women exchanged glances. Kate could read their thoughts, improper, unwomanly, strange. Only Mrs. Patterson smiled with genuine warmth. "I think it's wonderful. A woman with practical skills is a blessing to any household." After they left, Kate felt exhausted and defensive. She'd spent 2 hours being judged and found wanting by women who'd never had to fight for survival. Tom found her in the forge, hammering out her frustration on a piece of scrap iron. "That bad?" he asked. "They think I'm strange, improper, a curiosity." Kate's hammer rang against the anvil. "Maybe they're right. Maybe I don't belong here." "Kate, stop." Tom caught her arm gently. "Look at me." She did, seeing understanding in his dark eyes. "I've spent my whole life not belonging," he said quietly. "Not white enough for the white world. Not Shoshone enough for my mother's people. I learned to stop caring what others thought and start caring what I thought of myself." "How?" "By building something that mattered. By proving through actions what words couldn't accomplish." He gestured to the ranch around them. "Every fence post, every horse trained, every honest deal. That's my answer to the people who said I'd fail. You have your own answer, Kate. You're a skilled blacksmith and a capable woman. Let your work speak for you." Kate set down her hammer, her anger cooling. "You're right. I know you're right. But it's hard." "I know." Tom pulled her close. "But you don't have to do it alone anymore. We face this together." That night, lying in their bed, Kate finally asked the question that had been haunting her. "Tom, if Thomas hadn't shown up demanding money, if we hadn't been forced to marry, would you have asked me eventually? Or was our marriage just the easy solution to a complicated problem?" Tom was quiet for so long that Kate thought he might not answer. Then he spoke, his voice raw with honesty. "I don't know what would have happened without the pressure. Maybe I would have courted you properly. Maybe I would have lost my nerve and let you leave after 3 months, too afraid of rejection to risk asking." He turned to face her. "But I know this every day since you arrived I've wanted you here. Wanted your laughter in my kitchen and your strength beside me and your fire warming my cold corners. So whether we married last week or 6 months from now, the result would be the same. I choose you, Kate. I'll choose you every day for the rest of my life." Kate kissed him, tasting salt on her lips. His tears, or hers, she couldn't tell. "I choose you too," she whispered. "Despite my doubts and fears and Caroline's poison, I choose us." "Then that's all that matters," Tom said. "Everything else is just noise." And for the first time since Caroline had appeared, Kate believed him. The weeks that followed settled into a rhythm that felt less like settling and more like growing. Kate learned the ranch's patterns when the horses needed feeding, how to read weather in the mountains, which fence lines required checking first after storms. She learned Tom's patterns too, the way he checked the stalls before bed, regardless of how tired he was, how he went quiet, when worried, how his rare smiles transformed his entire face. Spring came early to Montana Territory that year, the snow melting in late February to reveal muddy ground and the first shoots of green. With it came the busiest season on the ranch, foaling time breaking young horses for buyers preparing for the long work ahead. Kate spent her mornings in the forge making and repairing the endless tools ranch life required. Her afternoons were split between household work and helping with the horses. The town women had stopped their visits after that first uncomfortable gathering, but Kate found she didn't miss their company. May's friendship was worth a dozen society ladies, and Mrs. Patterson made a point of waving whenever Kate came to town for supplies. Caroline and her father had left after a week, but not before Caroline made one final attempt to speak to Tom privately. Kate had watched from the barn as Caroline touched his arm, her expression pleading. Tom had removed her hand gently but firmly and walked away. That night, he'd told Kate everything Caroline had said, promises of renewed affection, suggestions that his marriage was hasty and could be annulled, offers of her father's business connections. "I told her the only woman I wanted was the one I married," Tom had said. "The one who sees me completely and chooses me anyway." In late March, a letter arrived from Philadelphia. Kate's hands shook as she recognized the handwriting, her father's old business partner, Mr. Garrett. "Dear Miss Brennan," it began, and Kate had to remind herself that she was Mrs. Merrick now. "I write with news that may interest you. Your brother Thomas has been arrested for assault and public drunkenness. He struck a man in a tavern, nearly killing him. The victim's family has pressed charges. Thomas faces significant prison time. Additionally, his debts have mounted to the point where his creditors have seized what little property remained. I thought you should know that he is no longer in a position to trouble you. Your father would have been grieved to see his son fall so far, but he would have been proud of your courage in leaving when you did. I hope Montana Territory has treated you well." Kate read the letter twice, then handed it to Tom without comment. "How do you feel?" he asked after reading it. "I don't know." Kate stared at the paper. "Part of me is relieved. Part of me is sad for what Thomas could have been. Mostly I feel free. Like the last thread connecting me to that life just snapped." "You're not Catherine Brennan from Philadelphia anymore," Tom said gently. "You're Kate Merrick of Montana Territory. That person gets to decide what she carries forward and what she leaves behind." Kate folded the letter carefully. "I'm leaving it all behind. Thomas, Philadelphia, the fear. I'm keeping only the lessons: how to survive, how to work, how to recognize real love when it finds me." That afternoon, she burned the letter in the forge fire and watched the paper curl into ash. In early April, May appeared at the house with news that made her eyes bright with joy. "I'm pregnant," she announced. "Baby comes in October." Kate hugged her fiercely. "That's wonderful. Does Sam know?" "He knows. He's been building cradle for 2 weeks already, even though I told him we have time." May's smile was radiant. "You will help me, yes, when the time comes." "Of course." Kate paused. "May, I don't know much about birthing babies." "Neither did I with my first child, the one who died before we came to Montana." May's voice grew soft. "That's why this one is so precious. Second chance, like you and Tom." The word stayed with Kate for days. Second chances. That's what this whole territory represented, a place where people could remake themselves, where the past didn't have to define the future. One evening in late April, Tom found Kate standing at the corral fence watching the horses. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, leaning beside her. "How different my life is from what I imagined. 6 months ago, I was desperate enough to answer a mail-order bride advertisement from a stranger. Now I'm married to a man I love, working a trade. I'm good at living in a place that feels like home." She glanced at him. "Sometimes it doesn't feel real." "It's real." Tom's hand covered hers on the fence rail. "Kate, I need to tell you something. I've been working on plans for expanding the ranch, adding another barn, more breeding stock. It's going to require investment and risk." Kate waited, sensing there was more. "I want to do it with you. Not just tell you after it's decided, but plan it together. Make decisions as partners." His expression was earnest. "This ranch is ours now. I want you to have a real say in its future." Kate felt something unlock in her chest, a final piece of doubt dissolving. "Show me the plans." They spent that night at the kitchen table, Tom's drawings spread between them. Kate asked questions, suggested modifications, calculated costs. By midnight, they had a plan that excited them both. "We'll need a loan from the bank," Tom said. "Mr. Westbrook's bank, ironically, but we have the land and stock as collateral." Then we'll get the loan, Kate said with confidence she was learning to feel. We'll build something that lasts. The next morning they rode into town together. The bank was a substantial building on Main Street, its windows proclaiming Westbrook Territorial Bank in gold letters. Inside, Mr. Westbrook himself came out to greet them, his expression carefully neutral. Mr. Merrick. Mrs. Merrick. What can I do for you? Tom laid out their expansion plans with calm precision. Kate added details about the forge work required the timeline they'd developed. Mr. Westbrook listened without interruption. This is ambitious, he said finally. The loan amount you're requesting is substantial. The ranch is profitable, Tom said. We have assets to back the loan, and Kate's smithing work adds additional income. Mr. Westbrook's gaze moved to Kate. My daughter told me you're a blacksmith. I confess I didn't entirely believe her. I am, Kate said simply. I can provide references from customers if needed. That won't be necessary. Mr. Westbrook sat back. Mr. Merrick, I owe you an apology. One I should have made 10 years ago. I judged you based on prejudice rather than character. I paid you to leave my daughter alone because I was ashamed of my own narrow-mindedness, not because you were unworthy. The admission hung in the air. Tom's expression didn't change, but Kate felt his tension. Caroline married well, Mr. Westbrook continued. A wealthy man from Boston. They're quite comfortable. But I don't think she's happy. Not the way you two clearly are. Why are you telling me this? Tom asked quietly. Because I want you to know that I was wrong. About you, about what makes a good marriage, about what matters in this territory. Mr. Westbrook pushed papers across the desk. Your loan is approved. I'll have the documents drawn up by end of week. Outside, Kate took Tom's arm. How do you feel? Vindicated. Angry that it took 10 years. Grateful that we got what we needed. Tom stopped in the street. But mostly grateful for you. Caroline would have been ashamed to stand beside me in that bank asking for money. You stood there like you belonged, because you do. We both do, Kate corrected. That's what we're building, Tom. A place where we both belong. The summer passed in hard work. The new barn rose from the ground, its frame strong and true. Kate worked the forge daily, creating the hardware needed for construction. Sam supervised the building while Tom handled the horses. May, growing round with pregnancy, managed the household with Kate's help. In July, a traveling photographer came through Lonesome Creek. On impulse, Kate suggested they have a portrait made. For posterity, she said, so our children will know what we looked like when we were young. Tom's expression shifted. Children. Kate hadn't meant to bring it up this way, but the words were out. I'm pregnant, about 3 months along. I wanted to be certain before I told you. Tom picked her up and spun her around his laugh, startling the horses. A baby. We're going to have a baby. Are you happy? Kate asked, though his reaction made the question unnecessary. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. Tom set her down carefully. Kate, you've given me everything: love, partnership, purpose, and now a family. How did I get so lucky? We both got lucky, Kate said. We found each other when we needed it most. The photograph was taken on the porch of their house, the mountains visible behind them. Tom stood tall, his hand on Kate's shoulder. Kate sat in front of him, her expression serene. Both looked directly at the camera, their faces showing the strength of people who'd survived hard things and found joy on the other side. In October, May went into labor on a cold morning when the first snow was falling. Kate stayed with her through the long day and longer night, holding her hand, offering encouragement. Sam paced outside, his usual calm, shattered by worry. The baby. A girl arrived at dawn, her cry strong and healthy. May wept with relief and joy, and Sam's face when he held his daughter was something Kate knew she'd remember forever. We'll name her Hope, May said, because that's what she is, our second chance. Kate's own child was born in February during a blizzard that trapped them at the ranch for 3 days. The labor was hard and long, but Tom never left her side. When their son finally arrived, small and perfect and red-faced, Kate felt something shift in her understanding of the world. "What should we name him?" Tom asked, holding the baby with careful reverence. Kate looked at her husband, this man who'd given her everything when she'd had nothing. "James," she said, "after your mother's father, so he'll know where he comes from." Tom's eyes filled with tears. "James Merrick, I like that." The years that followed were full of work and weather of joy and struggle of watching children grow and the ranch prosper. Kate became known throughout the territory as the best smith for 200 miles. People came from distant towns seeking her work, and she trained 2 apprentices who eventually set up their own forges. The ranch expanded beyond anything Tom had imagined. They added cattle to the horses, built 2 more barns, hired a dozen hands. Sam became a full partner, and May ran a successful business selling preserves and baked goods to the growing town. James grew strong and stubborn with his father's dark eyes and his mother's determination. 2 years after him came a daughter they named Sarah, who had Tom's quiet intensity and Kate's fierce independence. Then another son, Daniel, who showed an early talent for working with horses that made Tom grin with pride. Kate watched her children grow and saw in them the blending of 2 families, 2 heritages, 2 people who'd been told they didn't belong anywhere, but had created belonging for themselves and for the next generation. On their 10th anniversary, Tom surprised Kate with a gift, a new forge building larger and better equipped than the old one. "You've talked about wanting to do more experimental work," he said. "Now you have the space." Kate walked through the building, running her hands over the new anvils, the improved ventilation system, the storage for raw materials. In the corner stood a plaque that read, "K. Merrick Master Blacksmith Est, 1882. "Master Blacksmith," she read aloud. "It's what you are," Tom said simply. "The best in the territory. Everyone knows it. The plaque just makes it official." That night, after the children were in bed, Kate and Tom sat on the porch as they had countless times before. The ranch spread out around them, its buildings and fences and corrals representing years of shared labor and vision. "Do you remember our wedding day?" Kate asked. "How rushed and desperate it all was." "I remember thinking I was the luckiest man alive," Tom said, "despite the circumstances. I was so scared." Kate's voice was soft with memory. "Scared I was making a mistake. Scared you'd regret it. Scared I'd fail at being a wife and mother and everything else. And now," Kate looked at their land, their life, their legacy. "Now I know that scared and brave aren't opposites. You can be both at once. I was terrified when I answered that mail-order bride advertisement. Terrified when I stood up to Thomas. Terrified when I married you after knowing you 3 weeks. But I did those things anyway, and they led me here." "To me," Tom said. "To us," Kate corrected. "To a life I never imagined, but can't imagine living without." Tom pulled her close, and they sat in comfortable silence watching stars emerge over the mountains. Inside, their children slept safe and warm. Around them, the ranch they'd built together stood strong against the Montana night. Kate thought about the frightened woman who'd stepped off that stagecoach in December 1882, clutching a worn bag and a desperate hope. That woman had been rejected, humiliated, left with nothing but a stranger's offer of employment. That woman would barely recognize the life Kate had built, not through luck or rescue, but through choosing courage over fear, partnership over safety, and love over doubt. She'd been told she didn't belong, that she was improper, that her skills were unwomanly, and her choices were wrong. But she'd proven them all wrong by the simple act of building a life that mattered. 20 years after that cold December day, Kate stood in her forge on a summer morning teaching her daughter Sarah the fundamentals of metalworking. James was out with Tom, learning to break a particularly spirited colt. Daniel was helping Sam with fence repairs, his young voice carrying across the yard as he sang a song in Shoshone that Tom had taught him. A buggy approached, and Kate recognized Mrs. Patterson from town. "Kate," she called, "I've got someone who needs your help." A young woman climbed down her dress, worn, and her face showing the marks of hard travel and harder experience. Her eyes held the same desperation Kate remembered from her own reflection in Elias Thornton's store window all those years ago. "This is Emma," Mrs. Patterson said. "She's running from a bad situation back east. I thought you might understand." Kate looked at Emma and saw herself frightened, uncertain, trying to be brave. She wiped her hands on her apron and smiled. "Come inside," she said. "Let's talk about what you need." As Emma followed her to the house, Kate caught Tom's eye across the yard. He smiled, understanding what she was doing, offering another scared woman the same chance he'd once offered her. That evening, Emma stayed for dinner, surrounded by the noise and warmth of the Merrick household. She watched Kate and Tom work together in the kitchen, their movements coordinated from years of partnership. She saw how Sam and May were treated as family, how the children moved freely between households, how different kinds of people had built something strong together. "Is it always like this?" Emma asked quietly. "Not always," Kate said honestly. "We've had hard times, times when money was tight and work was brutal, times when the town judged us and we questioned ourselves. But we had each other, and that made the difference." "I don't have anyone," Emma whispered. "You have us now," Kate said. "If you want. There's work here if you're willing, not charity work, and time to figure out what comes next." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Why would you help me?" Kate thought about Tom's answer to that same question so many years ago. "Because someone helped me when I had nothing. Because that's what we do out here. We help each other survive, and sometimes we do more than survive. Sometimes we build something beautiful." Emma stayed. Like Kate, she found her place through work and patience, and the gradual realization that she was valued for her skills rather than judged for her past. A year later, she married one of Sam's apprentices, and Kate stood up as witness, remembering her own rushed wedding and how far she'd come since then. The ranch continued to grow, and so did the family. More children were born to Kate and Tom, to Sam and May, to Emma and her husband. The town of Lonesome Creek expanded, and with it came more acceptance of different kinds of people and families. Kate's forge became legendary, and smiths came from across the West to learn from her. She was invited to demonstrate her techniques at the territorial fair, and newspapers wrote about the Lady Blacksmith of Montana who'd broken every convention and built an empire. But Kate's proudest moments weren't the accolades or the successful business. They were the quiet evenings on the porch, with Tom, the sound of their children's laughter, the knowledge that she'd created a home where people belonged, not because they fit a mold, but because they chose each other. On Kate's 50th birthday, the whole territory seemed to gather at the ranch for a celebration. There were speeches about her contributions to Montana's development, presentations of gifts from grateful customers, and toasts to her success. But the moment that mattered most came at the end of the night when Tom pulled her aside. "I have something for you," he said, handing her a worn piece of paper. Kate unfolded it and recognized the advertisement immediately. "Respectable businessman seeks educated Eastern lady for matrimony and companionship. Passage paid." "Where did you find this?" she asked. "I saved it, the day you told me you'd answered it." Tom's smile was gentle. "I wanted to remember the moment my life changed, the day you walked into Thornton's store and called him a coward." Kate laughed. "I was so scared that day, trying so hard to be brave." "You were brave. You've been brave every day since." Tom took her hands. "Kate, I've spent 30 years watching you transform from a frightened woman with nothing into the strongest person I know. You've built a business, raised children, helped dozens of women find their way. You've proven that worth isn't measured by convention or judgment, but by character and courage." "We built all of it together," Kate said. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Maybe not, but I couldn't have done it without you either. That's what partnership means, making each other stronger, better, more than we could be alone." Kate looked around at the ranch, at the people they'd gathered into their unconventional family, at the life they'd created from rejection and desperation and stubborn hope. She thought about the mail-order bride who'd been rejected in a hardware store, who'd been told she was improper and unwomanly and didn't belong. That woman had been offered a chance by a man who saw her value when no one else did, and she'd taken it despite her fear. From that single moment of courage had grown everything she treasured: love that deepened with years, children who knew they belonged anywhere they chose to be, a community built on acceptance rather than judgment, and a legacy that would outlast them both. Kate Merrick had come to Montana Territory seeking survival, and had found something far greater. She'd found herself, and in finding herself, she'd found home. The mail-order bride who was rejected became the woman who belonged everywhere. Not because the world finally accepted her, but because she'd built a world where acceptance was given freely, and love was measured by choice rather than convention. That was the story Kate would pass to her children and grandchildren, not a tale of rescue or luck, but a testament to the transformative power of courage, partnership, and the decision to keep choosing hope, even when hope seemed foolish. In the end, she hadn't needed the world to change for her. She'd changed the world around her, one horseshoe, one kindness, one brave choice at a time.